What do you know about psychoanalysis? Tell me.
I know a little. I'm not as well read on all these things as you are, but I'm probably more well read than like your normie on the street, but not like that much more well read. Just like it's all tangential to the kinds of things that I'm interested in. So
Do you know about Freud? Do you know about how people make fun of him and stuff?
I do know a little bit about Freud.
A pretty interesting way how psychoanalysis turned out in society, because people make fun of a bunch of it because they're like, oh, it's like weird and like sexual and like, oh, you want to mom, what, like they kind of don't take it seriously.
Yeah.
But there's like a ton of concepts like, projection. Okay, first off, the unconscious mind in general is psychoanalytic concept, but let's say like projection. Like, when was the last time you heard somebody be like, oh, you're projecting on somebody?
Oh, I've heard
Like,
that. People say
like
that all the time.
yeah. So like that's like a Freudian thing. Like, the people kind of accept a bunch of their premises, but they don't really know that it comes from psychoanalysis. They just like, assume it's like general kind of like psychology.
Can I ask you a question that somebody asked in chat?
Okay, I could share my screen, maybe that would make more sense.
Yeah, you can see it now.
Yeah, this breakdown of how the psyche works. This is an abstraction of thinking that isn't directly related to, like, it's not necessarily like a neural correlate to it. It's not like a neural structure. It's a higher level abstraction of how the mind is kind of divided. Part of the idea there is that we're never simply a unified whole or a unified like I or sense of self. This is something that is maintained by these like mechanisms of the conscious and subconscious mind that create a feeling of wholeness, or this like holistic continuity of identity that allows you to kind of feel a sense of self, without which you feel alienated, depersonalized, psychotic, or otherwise not having a kind of a stable, consistent sense of self that is unified. So that's sort of supposed to be the function of the ego. So ego is related to like your sense of self and identity. The id is, as you probably heard, it's kind of like the base, like cardinal, like instincts and drives, and kind of like most of the conscious is kind of in there. And then the super ego is how the societal rules of conduct and morality and stuff are kind of imposed from the top and applied to this mediation, essentially, between what society says you're allowed to do, what your drives and desires want to do, and then in the middle there's an ego, and the ego is mediating or controlling them to some extent to make sure that we can get a bit of our cardinal desires out, but still fit within societal rules enough to like not kind of get cast out by others or be othered, right? Be dehumanized, be counted as not a subject. So this causes like a real sense of loss when it happens, right? So when somebody loses their sense of ontological wholeness and they feel like they don't fit in society, like this is not just a physical thing of like, oh, I don't have friends like I'm around, or I don't have like a family that I'm around right now, or somebody that cares about me. Like, it's problem at kind of a deeper level of those unconscious structures of thought, right? Where in their own mental map of the world, where every other subject and person has some sort of location, they don't have a concept of themselves in their own mental map, and so they can't feel human as far as thinking about the world goes. And that can happen if there isn't this stability between the levels of the id and superego, if superego is like missing somehow, or if the ego itself is not able to kind of synthesize those levels, or essentially something that kind of affects your unity of your sense of self, and that is potentially fragile. Like, society is meant to prop up our sense of self and keep us within certain wholeness that reduces our anxiety. It allows us to like go and go to work and like engage with friends and engage romantically, sexually, create families. Obviously, part of this is that it helps standardize people in a way into types, and then that is supposed to enable them being able to interact with each other in a consistent way. And obviously gender/sex is a big part of that. It's kind of meant to define how you see yourself, your sense of subjectivity, and it's a mechanism for some sort of coordination in society or some sort of unity, right? It's supposed to kind of help fill in that relation in the family between the man and the woman so that they're able to procreate and have a family unit and perpetuate society for the next generation. That's sort of where that superego function and controlling the id comes from. And psychoanalysis tries to go over all this stuff, explain how the unconscious is generating those thoughts, how it's sustaining the sense of self, and also the fact that it's related to sex, which is this weird thing that doesn't have its own domain. And sexuality perpetually comes up as an issue for psychoanalysis and other disciplines because of its kind of like elusive nature.